Next here, we have Keith Moore.
Good to see you.
From Autoscheduler. A well-decorated man, lots of awards.
Thank you.
Autoscheduler's been racking up over the last year or so, man, right?
Yeah, we have a really great team. Really great business, great team, really good marketing and PR team as well.
Yeah. Shout out to Ginger, right?
Shout out to Ginger.
Yes. All right, so how are you, sir? It's been a little while since we've had you on.
I'm great. A little bit more gray hair than I did last time we talked. Just the world's been very busy. We're in the middle of some global rollouts with really large CPG food and beverage customers, and so it's been the fun of growing a business, maintaining a business, scaling a business, all the things that we had hoped we would be doing 4 years ago, and when you and I just met.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I remember it was just something that kind of was coming out into the market, right? Because it had been kind of privately developed, and now it's out there for everybody. So I guess maybe for people that are not familiar, why don't you tell us what is Autoscheduler?
Yeah, so the origin story of Autoscheduler, the company and the software, was over a decade ago. P&G did a study on their distribution landscape, so distribution being your plants and your warehouses. And they found that there was a disparity in efficiency at some sites. And so they went and they double-clicked into the poorly performing sites. Why are they performing poorly? What's causing this? We're shipping the exact same products with the exact same software and process. And what they found was the leadership team, and leadership team being your task managers, work queue managers, they call them pilots there, the people that are in a shipping office, so shipping, receiving, inventory control, and management. There was high turnover in those roles at the poor performing sites, and the best performing sites had tenured folks that had been in the role for a long time. So they kind of came to the thesis, it takes like 4 to 5 years to learn how to run a warehouse. Yeah. And retaining those personnel is critical to the business, and where you can't retain them, you end up with poor performance and poor execution in the building. And so their thought was, can we take our best performing people, replicate what they're able to do in software, and make that ubiquitous across our network, so that even if it's somebody stepping into a role day one, they have a plan that says, here's what we need to do and how we need to do it. Autoscheduler got built as a consulting project to solve that need. Now the consulting group that did it retained all the intellectual property. They built it, they scaled it inside of P&G, and then 4 years ago we were, the non-disclosure for talking about and selling the software elsewhere was lifted. We rebuilt the whole platform as a software as a service and went to market, and have been doing a really good job helping CPG customers, primarily, and moving now into fulfillment grocery in the last 4 years. Yeah,
and I mean it's been taking off. I mean, I've been seeing all the stuff that you guys have been doing. So I mean, I think the market has received it well. Your gray hair might attest to, right?
Yeah, it's been well received. It's a lot of work. It always is.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit, because I mean, it's essentially, I think if I remember last time we talked, it's essentially it's orchestration, right?
It is
orchestrating, right? So tell us a little bit about, as you look at an orchestration layer, I guess you could say, in your tech stack within your warehouse. I mean, what is that really doing for you? How is that helping you accomplish more?
Yeah. I'm going to go on a quick aside really quickly, just something that's kind of funny about orchestration, which is DHL just recently has been releasing a bunch of content about why warehouse and distribution orchestration is so critical to the business. I'm like, I coined that term. And somebody was like, no, you didn't. I was like, no, I did, right? I've had a Google alert for that term for 5 years now. And it's only about us up until recently. And you talked about that on the first podcast we did together, so it's out there. Thank you for being here for the journey of building a market. And so when we talk about orchestration, like, what does that mean? And the best analogy to think about it in the distribution landscape is, you remember in the 90s, maybe you and I weren't driving, but to get somewhere you had a map. And it was, all right, here's where I want to go, here's where I am, I'm going to chart my course, and I'm going to execute against that. And that's how warehouses run today, right? The orders are just dropped in, and you're like, all right, go figure out how to execute on all of this work. And so it's crayons and spreadsheets, it's Excel, it's whiteboards and paper, and people figuring it out and just getting it done. And that's kind of the superpower of warehousing teams.
We're doers,
And then MapQuest came around, and it would tell you how to traverse the route. It did all the thinking for you, but you still had to do it. And then in the 2010s, kind of late 2000s, Waze and Google Maps came around. It was revolutionary because it would tell you every step of the way. You take a wrong turn, no problem. Here's what you need to do to get where you want to go. here are the problems you're going to run into. Here's how long it's going to take you. You know, there's police up there. There's a wreck over here. We're going to reroute you around that.
Yeah.
That's what warehouse orchestration is, and that's what Autoscheduler is bringing to distribution facilities. Is every step of the way, we look at what you have to do. We look at what you currently have, and we're going to tell you what traversal path to follow to optimize your workforce and getting everything done.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key element because, and I love the analogy you made there to, you know, driving and, you know, there's a crash or something like that because there's, you know, I mean, hopefully there's not a crash in the warehouse, but we have things that are disruptions like that in the flow of traffic and the flow of things moving throughout. And, you know, to have a heads up on that and being able to tell those different things and, you know, where is the right way to route this, you know, where should this trailer be dropped at, like what's the most optimal thing to do, and have that kind of, I guess, visibility in a sense. I mean, it's such a win, I think. So I'm curious, I mean, as we're here at Modex, right, so we look around and obviously, you know, I don't think you can't come to Modex and not talk about the robots and automation, right? But if we look at those robots and automation, I mean, how does something like an auto scheduler help you to better put all those moving pieces and kind of components together within your operation?
Yeah, and that's actually a big part of our business case at this point is, you know, everybody loves robotics, and I love robotics, right? Background in control systems and data acquisition. And they do a lot to add capacity to your warehousing facilities. They make it extremely predictable in what you're able to do. But the problem that most companies run into, and we have a really large snack food manufacturer where you know this was the business case on bringing Autoscheduler in was we have an ASRS over here, we have AGVs over here, we have production lines running over here, automatic loading and unloading over here. These are different software systems. They are not necessarily connected. I have people still working things on the floor. I have to interchange, you know, there's a lot of human robotic interactions. I have to decide what I wave to robots, what I wave to people, how I'm going to be scheduling my workload. And at the end of the day, nobody really cares if so long as I'm getting everything out the door on time. But the people, and even those long tenured people, it wasn't that they couldn't control the operation. It's just all this complexity was added with robotics that they didn't understand or know how to manage. It's more variables for managing, right? If you have 20 people versus 18 people or 15 people, that's very doable. It's the same actor class of getting work done. When you have to introduce robotics and understand that they have very fixed constraints, right? They work at one speed, not faster or slower. And then understanding how to work that into your existing workflows, it becomes a big challenge. And so we actually get brought into sites to help them manage how they roll out automation at these facilities so that we can orchestrate the work with the automation and the human capital and the team members that they have on site.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great thing too, because it is like, I mean, there are some providers, that maybe can cover a lot of different processes with their solutions, but a lot of the providers here too, it's like they're only focused on one solution, right? And so you're going to get to a point where eventually you're going to have, you know, a robot from this company, a robot from that company, and, you know, how do I put those together? How do I make them communicate? How do I make sure that, you know, like you said, you're having the balance between the human and robot, what makes sense? And I think that's like a great thing to be able to have. So I guess in that regard, for somebody that maybe is coming here or is just out there and they're thinking that, you know, they need to start to get some automation or some robotics, I mean, I'm sure you would emphasize. So I'll ask you how much you would emphasize and I guess in what direction would you point them in terms of getting that kind of foundational systems and structure in place first?
Yeah, knowing, you know, people, process, technology. Robotics bring in the technology very much so. And they're fantastic at it, but it's understanding what processes can be repeated consistently at a singular rate that fit a business. Because I've seen really bad robotics projects where you have AGVs running along for example, shuttling product down a narrow corridor, and people can no longer traverse that path with the AGVs. And you end up with this scenario where they move slower when you need to move a lot of product, everything gets backed up, you don't ship on time. And it's because of the robotic process that this was introduced, not for any other reason. They bring a lot of value when everything's running normally. And so it's carving off, when you're doing a robotics project, carve off exactly what you want them to do, how it's going to fit into your existing workflow, and call out where the constraints and bottlenecks are going to be as you introduce that process. I mean, all the diligence and discipline should be done up front, so long as you're able to get want out of the systems.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to understand too, because I think, I think sometimes, especially as we're seeing, a lot. You mentioned DHL before, but we see, a lot of these bigger players, right, in the space. I mean, they're well versed in robotics and automation at this point. Right? I mean, they have teams that are handling that. But as we get more into that mid-market level and those things, that's not necessarily somebody you have on your team at that point yet, right? And it's trying to understand. Sometimes maybe they're going in a little blind. So it's really good to be able to kind of, I guess, tell them and give them kind of like, hey, foundationally, like, this is what you need to put in place. Like, you got to get your people and your process in place, like you mentioned, and those system software to be able to get the most out of those robots, right? I mean, you don't want to go buy the robot and then figure out how am I going to make this work later, right? I mean, that's not really the right way. So I think it's great that you guys are able to help and focus on that and build upon what you've already built to be able to really create that overall warehouse orchestration trademark, right? And I put that out there.
Should be if it's not. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's great to do that because having that orchestration makes so much sense to be able to create that optimal flow and make sure those processes are running smoothly. So Keith, it's really great to connect with you here and have you come by the booth and give us a scoop on Autoscheduler and a couple other things as well. If people are interested in having better orchestration in their warehouse, what's the best way to get in touch?
Man, best way to reach out with us, www.autoscheduler.ai. Come to our website, register, sign up for anything. Somebody will get in touch with you if you need. You can also check me out on LinkedIn, Keith Moore, CEO of Autoscheduler. And I'll do my best to respond to everybody. I'm a big believer in helping folks in supply chain and being really open about what you do and where the market's going. So happy to chat with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach out to him. Great guy. And Keith, thank you so much for stopping by and talking to me today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a good rest of the week.